What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you a good summary of everything you need to know from an investor standpoint leading into next week. I'm going to go over some updated data points and tie it all together with some technical analysis at the end, where I will give you my price prediction for the end of the week, see where things might go. But before I get into any of that, you guys know the deal by now. Smash a thumbs up, subscribe. If you are new to the channel, I do daily videos on trending stocks, crypto. I do it all, so make sure you do subscribe. But with that said, let's get right to it. So there's a lot of information I do want to go over. First, I want to go over some economic events. So I'm just going to pop over here so you can see these are all the events for next week all throughout the globe. I'm just going to pop over to Tuesday. That's the first thing that I do feel is very relevant to Lucid. And not only that, I've always said I am a very big believer in consumer sentiment and as far as the confidence within the underlying stock. And there is the consumer confidence report that does show the overall broader market. So that's something I do strongly feel will not necessarily be a good catalyst to buy on, but at least it'll kind of drive up the market possibly. But again, based on what their forecast is, it does look like it was lower from the previous, so who knows where it might be. In addition to on Wednesday, so like I said, Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be the big days to watch for. More specifically, on Wednesday there is the GDP, so that is going to be a very big sign, a big indicator in my opinion, and that could in reality be a very good catalyst to buy on and could give the nice momentum that the stock market is very much needing. Because right now, regardless of Lucid being down as much as it is, the stock market and its numbers are actually very strong. So that is something to keep in mind. In addition to next week, especially more so on Friday, there was a little bit more geopolitical issues floating around. We all know Russia's situation, and that most likely will continue into next week. But there is also things such as North Korea. North Korea is kind of talking a little bit, so that might possibly roll into next week or might just dwindle out, who knows. But again, from an investor standpoint, by them adding a lot of uncertainty could cause a little bit more volatility. So from an investor standpoint, that's something more for us just to watch for. And like I said, just want to show you this. These are the sentiment scores leading into next week. So the overall sentiment score is actually negative 1%. So overall, a lot of people aren't really necessarily talking or thinking positively about Lucid in particular. And then also the tweet volume. So at the end of the day, less people are talking about Lucid. So those are two sentiment scores as well that people are kind of thinking about Lucid. So from an investor standpoint, it's always good to see those numbers and exactly what other people are talking about. And in addition to there, yesterday was the big day for Toronto. Lucid Studio did open, and it is actually open right now. So that is something I really do like, and I always do strongly feel based on their previous earnings, now know that these studios are actually doing exactly what was intended, to drive up demand and get reservations. So I'm very excited about this. I've been saying this over the last couple of videos. Toronto is a very big market, and I'm very excited for that. So those are things that either have happened or things for us to look forward to. I do strongly feel, again, the Lucid Studio in Toronto isn't necessarily a big buying opportunity because there's going to be a lot more studios opening up in the next quarter, but it is definitely good for a lot of people to be aware of. And I do strongly feel there might be some rollover because Nvidia is a very big part in PR, especially more so on their stance. So I do strongly feel that is going to be brought up in also a lot of articles. So in case you do not know, Nvidia and Lucid did have a partnership announced last week. So that might be one part that does roll out into next week as well, just for us to be aware of. And in case you don't know, it is ultimately being incorporated by 2026 into Lucid's vehicles, which does go in line with a lot of other Lucid events, such as the Saudi factory opening up by 25-26, their $25,000 vehicle possibly being launched in 2026, even if that does ever come or amount to anything. In addition to LG, a lot of people are still talking about this. I did bring this up in a lot of other videos and also a live stream, why this isn't necessarily a good reason why you need to buy, but still people are audibly talking about that. So LG, in case you do not know, is building a factory in Arizona, a 1.4 billion factory. And like I said, it's not really necessarily that big of a deal. Lucid does have a partnership and agreement with them until 2023 to produce battery cells, but especially based on their last conference, it does look like Lucid wants to now do that in-house. So most likely by the end of 2023, they will actually cut ties with LG and do that fully in-house. So not necessarily a good reason why you need to buy. So right now there is a lot of things, like I've already mentioned, all pretty much neutral. No real reasons to buy into Lucid, especially considering I do strongly feel even the Nvidia news has already been worked into the price. There's a lot of big things to come from this, more autonomous driving, but that is obviously later in the game by 2026 or onwards. So like I said, more so next week, it is very stagnant. And going going into this, I'm just going to talk on some technical analysis. So I have the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Bands, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. So I do strongly feel the technicals are going to be a very big part going into next week, because like I said, a lot of things are happening, but no real reasons why you need to buy into Lucid. It's most likely going to be stagnant, and you can kind of tell that based on a lot of the indicators as well. So RSI is currently at 48, which is fairly neutral. Stochastic is at 79, so it is relatively high, so showing a little bit more of an overbought status, and there is also a little bit more of a deviation, so red line above the black showing more of a little bit bearish sentiment going on there. Momentum, you can see number of buyers have been going down a little bit, so again, that is something to keep in mind. Just want to show you on my left as well, it did close at $25.16, down 4.15%, 17.2 million on Friday, and that's been unfortunately a common trend that's been happening. Lower and lower volume getting into Lucid, and a lot of these momentum plays is very heavily reliant on capital getting in, and also the average is 52.4 and 1.7 million being purchased by institutions and hedge funds on Friday, and you can tell that based on the block volume, so that is something to watch for. Friday was a little bit low, or more so in line a little bit, but again, going into next week, that is going to be something for us to watch for. And like I said, looking on the actual indicators, we are at a very pivotal point. We are still higher percentile of the Bollinger Band, but last 2 days, or 3 days I should say, we have more so tested the central Bollinger Band, so transitioning from the higher to the lower, which ultimately would be a little bit more of a bearish sentiment. And looking at this as well, so we are at a very pivotal point. We are in between the S1 and the pivot, so at the end of the day, we're still a lot better than other growth stocks out there, which in reality is between now the S2 and the S1, so we are doing fairly well in that regard at least, but the S1 is at $23.73, so that is something to watch for. On the contrary though, the pivot point is 27.20, so that could definitely be a nice rebound and to head us up more. And before I give you my price prediction for the end of the week, I am just going to go over some other updated information, one of which is short interest, which in my opinion will be also playing a big part, especially considering if there is no news, they're going to be stepping up their game, so that's something as well for us to watch for. 1986 is a short interest, up roughly about 12% from 1 week prior. Utilization is still 100%, so 100% of the available shares to short are currently out. Day by day change based on Friday, it did increase 0.42%, which works out to be 1.03 million shares being shorted. And cost to borrow right now is 11.42, which in reality is starting to go back down a little bit, which again is more so not really incentivizing shorts to close out the position. So hand in hand, I do see short interest possibly going up a little bit more. Again, a lot of people will be watching the cost to borrow at the end of the day, and more so everyone is on the edge of their seat about these pivotal points, because Lucid and other growth stocks could go a lot of different directions. But like I said, especially with a stagnant amount of actual activity going on within next week, I don't see any real reason for us to break below that 23.73. So I do strongly feel within next week we will actually be in between that, more so pretty much around the $27 mark. I did give this as a price prediction last week, and I said ultimately we didn't have enough to get over that 27.20, which we didn't. We actually hit 27.20 to be exact. So I am actually going to reiterate that and say $27 is where we should be most likely next week, because given all the circumstances, one of the main reasons why we bounced so hard is because we are sitting at a substantial discount. But keep in mind though, I am not a financial advisor, so do your own due diligence at the end of the day. I hope you found this very useful. There's a lot of different things playing into next week, all of which are very much neutral, not really any real reasons again to buy into Lucid. But again, if you are a very long-term investor, these are amazing prices. That's in my own opinion, because 2 years from now, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it might be, nobody's really going to care if it's at 25.16 or if you bought in at 27 or 23. Nobody's really going to care. You're not really going to care. When it's $200, $300, whatever it might be, you're again just going to look back at these points and wish you bought more. So just keep that in perspective. And with that, let me know your thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. If you haven't already, smash your thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Greatly appreciate that. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With all that said, appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.